The Crimson Weave. The ancient shrine had stood silent for 300 years, its vermillion gates faded to the color of dried blood. Mai Shiranui approached through the twisted pines, her crimson hakama rustling against the undergrowth like whispered warnings. The air itself seemed to recoil from her presence, not from fear but from recognition of something equally dangerous walking among the shadows. "You should not have come alone," said the voice behind her. Mai didn't turn. She had expected this. Kyo would have tried to stop me. Terry would have insisted on charging in first. Sometimes, grandfather, the flames must face the flames. The ghost of Hanzo Shiranui materialized beside her, his ethereal form wavering like heat shimmer. In life he had been the greatest of the Shiranui ninja. In death he had become something more and less than human. "The beast within those walls is not mere fire," he warned. "It is hunger given form, chaos wearing the mask of flame. It has been feeding on the spiritual energy of this place for centuries, growing stronger with each passing season." Ma's hand found the war fan at her side, its steel edges glinting despite the absence of sunlight. The forest around the shrine existed in perpetual twilight, as if the very presence of the entity had drained the light from the world. "Then it's time to put it on a diet." She had tracked the creature here across 3 prefectures, following a trail of spontaneous combustions and inexplicable fires. Each incident left behind the same signature: flames that burned cold, consuming not just flesh and wood but memories, leaving behind victims who couldn't remember their own names even when their bodies survived. The shrine's main gate hung askew, its hinges twisted into impossible spirals. Beyond lay a courtyard where nothing grew, where even the ancient stones had begun to weep a substance that might have been blood or might have been something worse. "The binding circle is in the inner sanctum," Hanzo said, "but the beast will not allow you to reach it unopposed." As if summoned by his words, the temperature plummeted. Mai's breath misted in the suddenly frigid air, and frost began to form on the surrounding trees. This was not the absence of heat, this was the presence of something so fundamentally wrong that even fire itself recoiled. The courtyard erupted. What emerged defied description and demanded it simultaneously. The beast was flame, but flame with malevolent intelligence. It towered 20 feet above the ground, a writhing mass of crimson and gold that hurt to look at directly. Yet within its blazing form, Mai could see the suggestion of wings, of claws, of a maw filled with teeth made of crystallized fire. When it spoke, its voice was the sound of cities burning. "Another Shiranui comes to die," it said, and the words left scorch marks in the air. "I have been waiting so long for one of your bloodline to find me again. Your ancestors' binding grows weak. Soon I will be free to finish what I began 3 centuries ago." Mai stepped forward, her fans already in her hands. "Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not here to feed your ego. I'm here to end this," the beast laughed, and several nearby trees simply ceased to exist, not burned, but erased, as if reality itself had forgotten they ever were. "You cannot end what never truly began, little flame dancer. I am not of your world. I am the space between thoughts, the pause between heartbeats where terror lives. Your fires are children's toys compared to what I offer. Then let me show you what this child can do." Mai leapt, her body moving with inhuman grace as she launched into her signature attack. Kachozan, the flaming butterflies erupted from her fans, each one a perfect fusion of her kai and her ancestral training. They swirled around the beast in a deadly spiral, seeking weak points in its defense. The creature swatted them aside contemptuously, but Mai had expected this. The butterflies were not her true attack, they were a distraction. While the beast focused on the showy technique, she had positioned herself for something far more dangerous. Hakuro no Mai, the multiple strikes came faster than thought, each one targeting a specific point in the creature's spiritual anatomy. For a moment the beast wavered, its form becoming less solid, more vulnerable. "Impossible," it hissed. "No mortal flame can touch me. Good thing I stopped being mortal a long time ago," Mai replied. It was true, though she rarely admitted it even to herself. The night she had first tapped into the true power of the Shiranui bloodline, she had burned away something essential, something purely human. What remained was capable of feats that would have been impossible for any normal fighter, but the cost had been her ability to form lasting connections with anyone who couldn't match her otherworldly nature. The beast's attention sharpened, and for the first time Mai sensed something approaching uncertainty in its fiery gaze. "You have the scent of the void about you," it said slowly. "What did you sacrifice for such power?" "Everything that mattered," Mai answered honestly. "And I'd do it again." The fight began in earnest then. The beast's attacks came in waves of pure destruction. Not fire as humans understood it, but something far more primal and hungry. Each strike left reality briefly unstable, causing the air itself to ripple and distort. Mai danced between the attacks, her body moving in patterns that seemed to bend space around her. The traditional Shiranui techniques had been designed specifically for combating supernatural entities, each movement a carefully crafted counter to otherworldly physics. Ryu and Boo! She spun through the air, her fans trailing streams of azure flame that carved temporary wounds in the beast's hide. But even as she landed, she could see the injuries healing, the creature's form knitting itself back together with disturbing ease. "You begin to understand," the beast said, its voice now carrying a note of dark amusement. "I am not flesh that can be cut, not spirit that can be banished. I am the fire that burns when all other fires have died. I am the flame of entropy itself." Behind her, Hanzo's ghost flickered urgently. "Mai, the binding circle, you must reach the inner sanctum." But the beast had anticipated this, positioning itself between Mai and the shrine's heart. Its form expanded, filling the courtyard with writhing tendrils of impossible fire. "The Shiranui binding was always temporary," it growled. "A bandage on a wound that could never truly heal, but I have learned patience during my imprisonment. I have studied your techniques, memorized your weaknesses. This time there will be no escape." The tendrils lashed out simultaneously, each one seeking to envelop Mai in flames that would burn away not just her body, but her very existence. She met them with a technique she had never attempted before, one that existed only in the most forbidden sections of the Shiranui scrolls. Forbidden art, Gurin no Mai. The crimson flames that erupted from her body were not her own. They belonged to every Shiranui who had ever lived, every ancestor who had sacrificed pieces of their soul to protect the world from things like this. For a moment, Mai became a conduit for 3 centuries of accumulated power and pain. The beast recoiled, its form actually diminishing. What are you doing?" "I'm calling in a debt," Mai said through gritted teeth. The technique was tearing her apart from the inside, but she held on. "Every Shiranui who died fighting things like you left a piece of themselves in the bloodline. I'm giving them a chance to finish what they started." The ghostly forms of dozens of ninja began to materialize around the courtyard, each one wreathed in flames of a different hue. They moved as one, their combined assault forcing the beast back toward the shrine's inner chambers. "This is not over," the creature snarled as it retreated. "You may have the strength of the dead, but I have the hunger of the never-born. We will meet again, Mai Shiranui, and next time you will not have ancestors to hide behind." "I won't be hiding," Mai replied, following the beast into the shrine's depths. "I'll be waiting." The inner sanctum was a circular chamber dominated by an intricate pattern carved into the stone floor. The binding circle was indeed weakening. Several of the containment seals had already cracked, and dark energy seeped through the gaps like infected wounds. The beast had compressed itself into a more manageable form, but Mai could sense its true power coiled beneath the surface like a spring under tension. It paced the edges of the circle, testing the boundaries of its prison. 300 years, it said conversationally. "Do you know what I've learned in that time, little Shiranui? I've learned that your kind always makes the same mistake. You think you're fighting evil, but what you're really fighting is change. I am the fire that burns away the old to make room for the new. Without me, your world would stagnate and die." "Maybe," Mai admitted, studying the binding circle's complex geometry, "but that's not your choice to make." She began to move around the circle's perimeter, her hands weaving intricate patterns in the air. New seals began to form, each one drawn with flames that burned silver instead of red. These were not merely containment symbols, they were transformation matrices, designed to change the fundamental nature of what they bound. The beast suddenly understood what she was attempting. "You cannot, the binding was meant to contain, not to." "The old binding was meant to contain," Mai corrected. "This one is meant to redirect." The creature's form exploded outward, no longer bothering with human comprehensible shapes. It became a tornado of pure hunger, reaching for Mai with appendages made of crystallized despair. But the new seals held, channeling the beast's power away from destruction and toward something else entirely. "What are you doing to me?" it screamed, its voice now carrying undertones of genuine fear. "I'm giving you what you always claimed to want," Mai said, completing the final seal. Change. The transformation began slowly, then accelerated beyond perception. The beast's chaotic energy was being filtered through the new binding circle. Its destructive essence converted into something else, still powerful, still dangerous, but no longer fundamentally opposed to existence itself. When the light faded, what remained was no longer a beast at all. It was a young woman with hair like liquid flame, and eyes that held the depth of extinguished stars. She looked at her hands in wonder, then at Mai with something approaching gratitude. "I remember now," she said softly. "Before the hunger, before the rage, I was once like you, a guardian, a protector. The chaos consumed me so slowly that I forgot what I had been trying to save. Mai nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with her. The technique had cost her more than she had expected. She could feel pieces of herself that would never return. Memories that had been burned away to fuel the transformation. "What will you do now?" she asked. The former beast stood slowly, testing her new form. "I will remember, and perhaps, in time, I will find a way to repair some of the damage I have caused." She paused, looking directly at Mai. "But you, what will become of you? The power you used to change me came from your own essence. How much of Mai Shiranui remains?" It was a fair question. Mai could feel the answer in the hollow spaces where parts of her soul used to reside. She was still herself, but diminished, like a painting with several colors removed from its palette. "Enough," she said finally. "Enough to keep fighting, enough to keep protecting. That's all I ever really needed to be." The shrine began to crumble around them as the supernatural energies that had sustained it for centuries finally dissipated. Mai and the transformed entity made their way out into the courtyard, where Hanzo's ghost was waiting. "You did well, granddaughter," he said, though his form was already beginning to fade. "The ancestors can rest now, the debt has been paid." As the sun finally broke through the perpetual twilight that had shrouded the shrine, Mai looked back one last time at the ruins. Another monster had been stopped, another crisis averted. But she knew there would always be others, and each victory would cost her a little more of what she had once been. The price of being a guardian was never paid in full. It was a debt that accumulated with interest, demanding payment in pieces of the soul until nothing remained but the duty itself. But as she walked away into the morning light, Mai found she could live with that bargain. After all, some flames were meant to burn forever.